Hello again, fellow YouTubers and fellow Bond fans. Solomon Pleasant back for another James Bond movie review. And... Counting this one, we are like 12 left. So we are getting... I think we're like halfway through our movie reviews then. So, if you like what I'm doing with these movie reviews, leave comments below and give me like suggestions for other movies that you would want me to review. Like, leave suggestions for like other movies that I can review other movies as well, and I would probably do them in more detail depending on what they are. I could also easily do like other film reviews, I guess, or other genres. Like, I've seen the Die Hard series, I know that's good. Terminator, Dirty Harry, I've seen that stuff. So yeah, just leave comments below and whatnot. So that's just a little, starter. So, having that said, can we just keep talking about, other things? No, we have to get to the actual review? Okay. For your eyes only. Now, I recently watched there was like a Mondo, I think it was. I'll put a link to their site in the description, but I was watching one of their top 10 lists, and they had a top 10 James Bond movies. I'm just like, okay, I'll bite. What did you have? And this movie made it on their list. I'm just like, what? Why would you put this one on the list? And I'm going to explain in depth, about this movie, yeah. So, having that said, let's dive right into it for your eyes only. Anyway, so we start with story. And already I see the problem. The story is completely boring, bland, and forgettable. It's about stealing, like, this coding device that almost reminds me of the Lecter from Russia with Love. It's almost the exact same thing. It's just some sort of coding device, I think. Or, is it? Yeah, I think it's like a coding device or something. And the story is so forgettable that I even am now questioning exactly my notes, because... the Artec. It's basically like the Lecter. So... yeah, I barely remember what the Artec does, and it's just, really forgettable. It's a really forgettable story. It is probably one of the most forgettable. Granted, I at least remember For Your Eyes Only when I'm doing my rehearsal of every single James Bond movie. Yeah, people do that. And granted, I missed the Man with the Golden Gun, but the Man with the Golden Gun still had some features. This one does not. This story is totally forgettable, totally bland, and just... everything about it's just like, bleh. It's boring, and I can barely get invested in it. There isn't really anything that makes me invested. The story is just bland. I can't really go into more detail because it's bland. It's really bland. So for that reason, I give it a half a star, because it's bland. Moving on to scenery. Scenery is also bland, boring, and forgettable. That's kind of a common theme with this movie. A lot of it's bland, boring, and forgettable. The castle looks cool in like the third act. That's kind of cool, actually. The castle thing on top of the giant rocks and whatnot. That's cool, but other than that, the rest of it's like boring. There is one scene where Bond is chasing one of the henchmen in a car chase. That scene I actually like. That's probably the only scene from that movie that I genuinely enjoy. But other than that, the rest of the scenery is just dull and forgettable. And it sucks that I can't really go into much detail with it because of how bland, boring, and forgettable it is. I barely remember it, and it's boring. So for that reason, I give scenery a half a star too, because it's just boring and forgettable. Moving on to follow-up. Gee, do you really think this movie follows up Moonraker? It doesn't. Moonraker is way better. It just is. Moonraker, I was entertained. There was stuff to be entertained about. This, there isn't anything to be entertained by. The only thing that I can really look at is Roger Moore. That is the only, and I will talk about this more in characters, but the only thing I can really get entertained by is Roger Moore at this point. And Roger Moore really isn't my favorite Bond. I mean, he does okay, but I'm getting into characters. Anyway, so follow-up is a half a star too, because it doesn't follow up Moonraker. It doesn't. Moving on to theme music. I don't like the theme song for this either. Granted, I don't know. When I do my list of all the James Bond themes, you'll see where I place that, if it's above or below Moonraker, but it's still just so boring, and it's just like, whatever. Can we get onto the movie? Oh wait, the movie's equally as boring. My mistake. So, yeah, for that reason I give theme music a half a star. I can't really dive into it because it's just so blah. I'm blown back by all this blandness and all this boringness. Most of it's just boring. Half a star for theme music. And finally, characters. Roger Moore's Bond. That's pretty much the only good thing from this movie. That is pretty much the only thing that I liked from this movie. Now, granted, I should probably go in order. The Bond girl is boring. Her subplot, oh, her parents were murdered. I don't feel that at all, that she's, like, upset that her parents were murdered. I don't get that feeling from her. I really don't. There's another Bond girl that's, like, way younger, and actually there's a scene where she tries to seduce Bond, and Bond actually says no, and it's like, did James Bond just say no to having sex? Holy crap! So it's just like, whoa. That's harsh. If Bond doesn't want to do it, that's harsh. That's harsh. Anyway, Q Branch is barely in this. M is barely in this. I barely remember them. While we're on the subject, now we'll talk about him in villains. Columbo was okay as a, like, Bond friend. He didn't die, so he was okay, I guess. I didn't really dislike him. I mean, I liked him. He was good. So there's that. Moving on to villains, let's start with actually at the beginning. The beginning of For Your Eyes Only I actually enjoy, and if it was more centered around this, if this was For Your Eyes Only and it was like, if it was all about the beginning, I think I would have liked this 100 times better. It starts out with Bond visiting Tracy Bond's gravesite. Hint, hint to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Which you know my feelings about that film, but at least that film was memorable. And then afterwards he gets into a helicopter that apparently is being controlled by a man in a wheelchair whom we're assuming is Blofeld. Another hint, hint. Apparently he survived Diamonds Are Forever. Again, they don't say who the man in the wheelchair is. We just name him the man in the wheelchair. We're assuming it's Blofeld, though, because of the cat, and he pretty much just seems like Blofeld. So Bond gets control of the helicopter, then drops Blofeld off in a smoke pipe, and then we're assuming he's dead. Again, we don't know if Blofeld's dead. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that in Bond 24 or something like that, because I hear Daniel Craig got like 2 more in him, or 3 or something like that. In a future Bond film, I want to see Blofeld again. I want to see how Daniel Craig stacks up against Blofeld. I really want to see that. Like or comment in this video if you want to see Blofeld again, because that would be awesome. And, so yeah, the opening scene is actually very entertaining. It's the only real good part of this movie, I think. For the most part. Moving on to actual henchmen and villains, there are 2 henchmen. One is named Emil Locke or something, and he does an okay job. I mean, he has an okay Bond villain death. I mean, Bond does a one-liner, and then he falls off a cliff in a car, and then the car blows up, so he's pretty much dead. I at least remember him. Then there's some other henchman that's like a blonde KGB agent. He just falls out a window. I'm just like, wow, I barely remember him, and I remember him even being in this entire movie. Wow, that was pathetic. And then you got Christos or something, that's the villain. Really? There's nothing memorable about this guy. There is nothing memorable about this villain. Nothing. No distinct feature that can make me remember him. Put a hook on his hand. Give him an eye patch. Give him a twirly mustache. Do something. Oh, wait. He does have a mustache and he doesn't even twirl it. Way to go, man. Way to go. I mean, he just is a bland villain that does almost nothing. So yeah, you got a lot of low-rate stuff. The only thing that's really good in this film is Roger Moore, and even then he only does a good job. When the villain I want to root for is the one that gets killed off before the opening sequence, if that's the villain I'm rooting for, that's pretty sad. So yeah, what do you think it's going to be? Characters get a half star. There is no redeeming qualities for characters and whatnot. So, yeah, half star for characters. And that totals out to 7.5. The lowest rating I've given for a Bond film, probably. And I think that's the lowest it'll go. It's a 7.5. I don't think I can go any lower than that. Yeah, that's pretty low. So for those of you keeping score at home, that's 2.5. Ouch. Yeah, this was not one of my personal favorites. I am not a personal fan of For Your Eyes Only. If you are, props to you. Maybe you see something in the movie that I don't. And if you remember something awesome about the movie or something good about the movie, again, leave comments and tell me so that I can acknowledge that and be like, oh yeah, now that you mention that, because I'm a person that is open to other people's criticisms and open to other people's ideas. I'm open to that. So if you throw something out there and I'm agreeing with, and if I think it's a legitimate thing to agree with, I'll be like, okay, yeah. So there's that. Anyway, I can't really say much else. This has been Solomon Pleasant, and what is next time? Okay, getting back into something good, actually. Roger Moore's second last film. How about that? Yeah, just picking up, look at this quickly. I hear it has, like, the nice planet. And Roger Moore's second last film, and, I don't know if I want to spoil anything else. What was the name again? Oh my goodness, that is hilarious. This will be a next fun review. I can already tell the next time's gonna be fun. Oh, it hurts to laugh. It physically hurts to laugh. Ouch. This has been Solomon Pleasant. Signing off.